So I'm about halfway through a 3-week trip in Italy, and the whole trip came about because of this book. It's the book I've spent the most money on, without a doubt. I found it for $500 on Amazon. The reason is Brunello Cucinelli, who wrote the book, is an Italian man, and he wrote the book in Italian, as one does. So the English copies are super hard to come by, but I finally found one. This all started back when I was listening to an episode of the Founders podcast where he covered this exact book. And I'd been aware of Brunello Cucinelli prior, but really dove into his story, and I became obsessed, and I had to get the book. And then once I read the book, I simply had to come here. So I'm sitting right now in Solomeo, which is in Umbria, which is smack dab in the center of the country here, right next to Tuscany. And it's this gorgeous Italian countryside. And so the heart of my trip here has been 4 or 5 days in this town. And I am inspired. I was inspired before I read the book. I was inspired as I read the book. And I'm inspired being here in the place. So I wrote a bit about what the experience has been like, but today I want to dive into the book itself. So count this as the next iteration of the Comma Book Club here. So what I'm going to do is roll through some of my favorite quotes that I underlined throughout the book, and then we'll talk about it. So I'm going to kick off with this quote here. So this is really part of Brunello's origin story. He talks about when he was young, how he saw his father really struggle with his job. He'd come home with tears in his eyes, disappointed, troubled by the work and his relationship with the company and the experiences. And he writes, I was very struck by his unjust grief. I felt helpless since I could not defend my father, but one thing inside me became instantly clear. Even if back then I did not yet know what I would do in life, I knew that I would definitely live and work in order to foster the moral and economic dignity of man. This is why humanity is the driving force behind my actions as a man and entrepreneur. Striving to respect human dignity might sound daring, something that not everyone can achieve. I, however, believe that such attitude is within the reach of everyone because it does not concern the quantity, but the quality of our actions, whose value is rooted in the intention more than in the actual deed. Human dignity is truly the cornerstone on which I base my life as a man and a businessman. It is the inspiration for the vision of the world that everyone needs in order to look at the future with hope. So this is like, you know, how superheroes have their origin story. This is his, seeing his father lack dignity in his work and in his life, and how it spilled over to the rest of the time that he wasn't at work. And this is part of the reason why I'm so inspired by what Cucinelli stands for and how he's built his business and his world here. He talks about dignity, and I love that idea of dignity, and how it's both the driving force behind him as a man and as an entrepreneur. That linking of his life as a person and his life as a builder, a creator, a creative, and how he instills his values and the things that he cares about in his life into his company as well. I absolutely love that. Just to build on that, I love this little line. He just lays these little breadcrumbs that shows you how a life can unfold. He says, step by step, I was moving towards my future, which would combine ethics and aesthetics. The idea of combining different things that don't seem like they go together, that to me is the power behind, you know, a life's work. And here he's talking about the time where he moves the company into the town of Solomeo. So he started as, you know, any individual entrepreneur with no backing does. He's on his own. He's bouncing around. He has no home base. He's doing it out of wherever he lives. He's sourcing cashmere. He's making the sweaters. He's working with his suppliers. And then eventually he's inspired by this town, Solomeo, the place that I'm sitting right now. He grew up near here, but he came to really love both the aesthetics, but also the ethics of the place. The community, the culture, and again, both the natural beauty, but also the human beauty in this town. And this town of Solomeo is this tiny, he calls it a hamlet. And it's the perfect word. A hamlet is smaller than a village. It's literally, Solomeo is just a hilltop. It's got they call it a castle. It's really just, a big manor house, and it's got a chapel and just a few tiny winding roads that look like something out of Game of Thrones. I mean, it's a tiny medieval town, cobblestone streets, and these beautiful old medieval homes that people still live in. But he really loved the sense of the place here. And it was back in the 80s, it was run down, and he decided to move in, and he actually bought the castle. He basically bought the town, and then he decided to move the company, which was growing at the time, into the castle itself. So he really fused his vision for the world and his company, and then the place itself and the aura and the energy of it and its people. He says, "I do not create, I hand down. This is why I have always thought of myself as a guardian, and today also as a true ferryman commuting from the past to the future." To buy the castle meant to achieve three great objectives: working in an ancient, beautiful place with its own charm, providing a dependable guarantee to banks, a monumental property instead of an industrial building, and finally revamping the castle and the village, which over the years were likely to experience a strong increase in economic value and also in terms of a better quality of life. So he speaks to something that is music to my ears. And again, part of the reason why I'm so struck by his story is his belief in the power of a place and its effect on people writ large, whether you're living, visiting, working. And he is someone who, as I see it, combines all the parts of his life into one whole, a cohesive one. And that's why I call what he does a life's work. It's really an integrated, dynamic pursuit. And he really takes to heart. So over the next decades, he invests in the town. The town was sort of crumbling, falling apart. And when you go to it now, it's this stunning, it's clean, it's perfectly kempt, but it's not altered. It still has its original soul. And he's just stewarding it, as he says here. He's handing it down. He's not so much an owner as he is a steward. And it just makes me think of service. He exists to serve both his life and those he touches. And that includes everyone, from everyone who buys one of his products to the people that work with him in his company to the people that simply live in the town in which he's now based. And yeah, I keep using the word inspiring because it's the only thing that I can think of. I think places really do have power. They have an energy to them. Next, he's speaking on beauty. He says, "Beauty is not decoration, an external attribute, something that appears just on the surface. It is the form of the inner quality of people. Where there is beauty, there is almost always truth. In most cases, it coincides with simplicity, which in turn is not a shortage of ideas or resources, but the sum of great inner wealth. When people are surrounded by simplicity, everything is clearer. They can understand beauty, and every human quality is brought to its fullest expression." So to pause here real quick, I love how he thinks about beauty. It's really made me think about beauty too, is it's not something on the surface. I love how he says it's the form of the inner quality of people. There's almost a spiritual way that he thinks about and sees beauty in the world. And again, the way that he shepherds his life and his work is in the direction of this beauty, this quality, this excellence. It reminds me of a book called Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert Pirsig. In a sense, it's a book on philosophy, a modern philosophy, but told in a parable, basically. And not just a fictional parable, but a story of a motorcycle trip he takes with his son. And it's impossible to explain. You have to go read it. It's a lift, but it's interesting. But he talks about understanding world through the eyes of quality. And I think Brunello is saying the same thing here. He's speaking to beauty, which is the quality of people, and in all things, in people, in natural beauty, but also in man-made beauty. He goes on to say, "We also discussed something we decided to call humanistic capitalism. We imagined a business embodying the rules of ethics in their noblest form, those rules that mankind has defined over the centuries. I dreamt of a form of contemporary capitalism rooted in strong ancient values, where making a profit should never harm or offend people or things, and where part of the earnings should be earmarked to promote initiatives aimed at concretely improving the conditions of human life. The common good should be the purpose of careful yet courageous actions. Finally, The human being should be at the center of any production process because this is the only way to restore dignity, since quality cannot exist without humanity. So an idea that I've been thinking a lot about recently is a form of modern philosophy. What does it mean to bring philosophy, which to me is just the culmination, the curation of timeless wisdom that humans have been seeking and uncovering forever and ever? I'm rolling around with this idea that I don't know that there really is anything new. Like any new insight or innovation to me is really just remaking and leveraging wisdom, insights from the past and recombining them in new ways. And that's, in a large way, what I'm seeking to do with Comma is modern philosophy to catalyze transformation, is to how do we take what's out there in the world, in a world of infinite everything, infinite content and advice? How do we seek to create or curate something of value from that? To me, it is about curation and finding insights and wisdom, both old and new, and reshaping them so that they fit, the milieu of the day and our culture and our lives. And I think he's doing the same thing here. A contemporary capitalism rooted in strong ancient values. He's a bridge between old and new. He has a lofty mission, and at the same time, he does something super concrete, which is he makes things. His company makes things. But the ability to act as a bridge, I think, is a superpower. It's something I find really compelling, and I find incredibly wise, because I think that's how you multiply, this lofty ideal and these ancient kind of pure values of beauty and humanity with the modern world and kind of bring it down to earth, which is something that's so hard to do so often with philosophy. And next, he's talking about sort of the next iteration of his vision. He's world building here, an idea that if you're with me, I'm obsessed with, and I think is the way to build a super dynamic and integrated project here. He's talking to his friend. He says, I told my friend, I think I've come up with another visionary idea. Shall we build a theater for the next generations of the coming 500, 1,000 years? His answer was, what a brilliant idea. However, we shouldn't build just a theater, but rather a whole area for spirituality and culture, a forum of the arts, an amphitheater, a philosopher's garden, a library, an academy. He's world building. And this is the direction I hope to head, right? He's, like I just said, he's doing things big and small. He's creating and selling products of excellence and beauty, but he aims upwards. That's a quote from Jordan Peterson. He's aiming upwards. He's aiming towards ideals and acting as a bridge from the small to the big. And by spilling out over into the valley in Solomeo, he's built not just a place for his company, but a place to foster things that are connected to his reason for being, to what he believes in. Beauty, spirituality, philosophy, culture. There really is a spiritual way that he thinks about his life and his work. And by spiritual, I mean simply connected to something bigger. And that can be religious or secular. It can be just a mission and a purpose. It can be a concept of God. But he speaks of spirituality, and I think that's part of the reason why it works. People can feel how it's connected to something bigger. And here, a further extension of his world building. He said, the castle could now be used in a manner that was ideologically more in line with its artistic and historical character. Indeed, it became the seat of our School of Arts and Crafts, one of the most important ways to improve people in society. So he then expands even further beyond creating spaces for culture and ideas and art and beauty to happen. He takes it a step further, and he's imparting his wisdom and creating a school for the next generation. So he's bridging even further, not just from past to present, but also to future. So as part of his world, he's building an expression of what he cares about, but he's also bringing that expression to others, people that want to continue in the direction that he's aimed. And building a school is also something that I've thought about deeply with Comma. And again, if you've been here, you know that that's the case. And what would it look like to create a school to sort of usher in, like, what would the next version of a school look like is something I think about all the time. And he clearly did the same in his world of, he's talking about physical craftsmanship, craftspeople that make his products and restore the town. But I think of it even further. And it's something I will continue to think about. More on the school here. He says, the concern for the future contributed to shaping the idea of a school of arts and crafts in Solomeo, a school fueled by passion whose aim would be to teach old crafts and make them contemporary. We liked the idea of a school functioning as a workshop, teaching theory and praxis and paying students while they were being trained. A school that would not be physically confined in a single location, but spread all over the village, where small buildings would each house a different discipline. With its very presence, the school would help revive the village. And he talks about the students learning not just a craft, but also the pride of being contemporary craftsmen. This would show the value of our humanity, consisting of body, mind, and soul, a wonderful reality that hopefully will not be overruled by technology. He's ushering this in. He keeps bringing up this idea of being a contemporary craftsman, bringing the old into the new. So this just hits on it as well. And now here, as we move on later in the book, he's speaking to the future. So further acting as a bridge into the technological world. He says, I shared these ideas in our wonderful and authentic experience when I recently visited San Francisco, where I had been invited by the leading players in the Silicon Valley's advanced technology industry. The theme of my lecture was gracious technology and humanism. I excitedly told these young men the following. I am honored to be here in the historic Yerba Buena Theater, in the cradle of modern genius, since you are the new Leonardos of the 21st century. But mind you, Leonardo was a great humanist, and for this reason, I call upon you to be up to the challenge and make the web more humane. Being online is surely important, but this should not steal our soul. Sometimes the background noise we are constantly surrounded by becomes an additional burden for the malaise we all carry in our soul. Voltaire was right. If you don't embrace the spirit of your time, you will be left with the worst of it. Today, from time to time, I too feel the psychological burden of my smartphone. The idea that this device knows everything about me and always listens to me, even when it is switched off, spoils my longing for solitude. In the future, the real luxury for our soul will be to lead a life unknown to our loyal travel mate. I'm especially interested in how Brunello thinks about the future. And I love that he says here, you can't, if you're not on the edge, you get the worst of what's to come. And so being on our front foot and thinking ahead into how we can use technology to make a better world is something I think about. I think we're entering a new era. I call it the transformation economy, where content is infinite and free. There's no longer value there. Where does the value go? The value moves up. It moves to the people that engage with it and the communities that are built around pursuing what the content is aimed towards. And I think we're going even further into the future where communities, yes, we still need communities, but what are we really looking for at the end of the day? It's transformation. We look to implement the things that we read and we learn about and we see in the content and through our communities. And I'm fascinated to see where it will go. And I hope to be on the edge of building it too. And here he's speaking to more of his overall philosophy. We would like quality, craftsmanship, creativity, exclusivity, culture of beauty, and a great willingness to listen to be the distinctive features of our brand, Brunello Cucinelli. Combining the ancient and the modern, the business goals and the human needs has always been our dream. The company is first and foremost devoted to nurturing the genius of the place, with a special focus on those who will inhabit it. The new concept of time and space should help improve quality of life, in which empathy, knowledge, and the dissemination of ideas experience a revival in simplicity and spontaneity. In Solomeo, a true think tank of ideas is busy searching for values based on traditions and emotions that rule the village as a place of familiarity and conviviality. Our boutiques are located in the most exclusive streets of the most important cities of the world. Each store has been designed to be some sort of shelter where one can find calm and relax, perceive the quality of time that is so dear to us, and experience a polite and refined approach that makes up the graciousness our business philosophy strives for. Our online store mirrors the character and spirit of the physical shop, starting from the window, which speaks of the relationship with tradition in a contemporary way. Our website bears our mark as humanist artisans of the web, which is inspired by the past example of our masters, but also ready to face present and future challenges. I've always maintained that the web is a great amplifier. We think that protecting the brand is more important than promoting it. Luxury means rarity and anticipation. The company aims at highlighting the importance of safeguarding the made in Italy from a social, domestic, cultural, or artisanal point of view. He says something incredibly wise here. He says the value of technology is only valuable insofar as it helps our lives. And if we go too far to technology for technology's sake, we start to lose the things that we've done and that make us human, things in the physical world, connection and beauty and solitude and nature and simplicity. But he also talks about being on the edge of using the internet and stewarding that in a way as well. I mean, check out their website. Please go give it a look. I mean, it's so much of a storybook. They talk about why they exist and what they aim for, just like this book itself. I mean, you get half this book just by looking through their website. They're doing it differently. They're doing it differently than other brands. And here he talks about how the past and the future blend together. I have understood that the legacy of the past is not a burden, but it supports the bright future before us. This future includes the internet too, which changes and will keep changing mankind for the better. It is a great gift we must be able to control. Marcus Aurelius left us possibly the most exhaustive statement. Live as if it were the last day of your life and plan as if you were to live forever. He's a techno-optimist. He believes in the future and he believes in the power of technology, as I do. And he teaches us how to do it differently. Back to this sense of beauty. Being able to sense beauty and wishing to know its secrets is an important expression of our humanity. Emperor Hadrian felt responsible for the beauty in the world, and each of us can feel responsible for the beauty of some part of it, maybe just our threshold, keeping it tidy and clean and perhaps adding plants and flowers. Beauty is simplicity. This is an essential theme. Simplicity does not mean getting rid of something. It means applying knowledge and choice to come up with synthesis. He reminds us that it can be simple. It can be the really simple things and the things right before us. I get lost in that for sure. I mean, my God, yeah, I spiral. But it really can be the next right thing in front of us. And it can be as simple as bringing some beauty or order into the thing right in front of us. It reminds me again of Jordan Peterson's philosophy. Fix what's right in front of you. Tidy your bedroom before you move to the next. If you don't know what to do, look really small and look minute. And then lastly here, summing up his life and his work in this book. If you've had the patience to read this book, you might have understood my dream. Joining together the beauty of the past with the beauty of the future. Perhaps it's not easy, but it's not mere utopia, as the recent years in Solomeo can prove. It means combining business with family, innovation with tradition, profit with giving back, money with humanity. What a way to end. That's what he exists for. And that's what I exist for. And that's why I found this book so inspiring. And I had to have it. And I had to come here. I mean, immediately after I finished it, months out, I booked a round trip flight to Italy because I simply had to come here and see, because of how he thinks about the sense of a place and how it blends with his life and his work and his family and his people and the community. There's a question of like, who do you look up to? And I think my number one answer has to be Brunello Cucinelli. It seems from the outside, obviously I don't know the man, but everything I read, it just feels so grounded in beautiful ideals. And the only question in my mind that truly matters, which is how do we live well? And how do we move into the world, move into the future, and do our part to bring us into a world where our human lives are better? And I really think he embodies building as an expression of what he cares about and who he is. And if Solomeo is, is any benchmark, he's done a great job, because it's a damn beautiful place. And here's the book, The Dream of Solomeo. It's hard to find. If you can find it, I highly recommend it. And this will guide me. I aim with comma in a similar direction. So I'm excited to keep going. It's daunting at times, but after reading this book, I'm filled with hope. And that's a gift. See you next time.